said the Lions won a game.
And we are back, Great Lakes State Football, episode 35, talking everything football in the state of Michigan. And I am Vince.
And I am Kory, and I'm coming to you from the great state of Minnesota.
The new home of TJ Hawkinson.
Maybe I'll see him.
Maybe you will. And I'm Brett, and we got Maction this week, baby.
Wednesday night Maction.
Have you walked around the streets of Minnesota and
we have Maction tonight too.
Have you talked to anyone in a very offensive Yooper accent? Minnesota.
No, but there was a lady today in a store that had a thick accent, like to the point where I couldn't even understand her.
Hun?
She's like, where is your chips at? And I was like, my what? You want to see my chickens?
She talked like she was straight out of Fargo. Hiya, hun. How you doing?
Yeah, she also had 4 teeth, so she was a nice lady.
Oh, boy, talking about the state of Minnesota there. So we are going to jump right into things here with that, with some high school football. We're very excited. Before, though, we start talking about high school football, just want to talk about a couple things. This episode, we're going to have a very exciting interview with our first head college football coach. We've had some head varsity high school football coaches on, a couple MIAA coordinators, but we will have our first official head college football coach on the podcast this episode with Jason Couch. Coach Couch is the head football coach at Alma College in his 5th year there. So very excited for that interview. That episode, or that portion of the episode, will be a little bit later. Once we get into our college football talk, it will follow that. So if you want to check out the interview, you can skip ahead. But you should stick around to this part of this podcast and listen to the high school football talk, which we're going to get into here in just a moment. Just want to mention last week's episode. If you hadn't checked it out yet, we did a huge Michigan high school football playoff preview episode. We had Goose Poop on, and the 4 of us all picked our Final Four and state champion for all 8 11-man football divisions here in the state of Michigan. If you haven't checked that episode out, do yourself a favor, check it out. We want to thank everyone who has checked it out. It's currently our most downloaded, viewed, watched, listened to episode. So we greatly appreciate everyone who's taken the time to check that episode out and share it. We had a lot of fun doing that with Goose Poop. We'll have Goose Poop on again sometime soon. So we will bring an update to you guys. We tweeted an update where everyone's picks were in terms of the Final Four and state champion picks from that episode. We will talk about those picks once we get to the semifinals in a few weeks here. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Before we get into our picks of the week, we are going to mention just a few things from Goose Poop's newsletter. If you've not subscribed to Goose Poop's newsletter, please make sure you do. He also just put out a documentary, which we talked about in the last episode. So he's doing a lot of really cool things. So just a couple things that we want to mention. Obviously some big games last week that he previewed in his newsletter the week before. A couple big noteworthy games was Detroit MLK and River Rouge got paired up first round. That was actually one of the games that we picked from last week off air. MLK ended up beating River Rouge. I think we unanimously picked MLK 41-28. I believe Goose Poop's model had River Rouge winning this game. So it was one of Goose Poop doesn't often have picks incorrect. He actually had 2 wrong this week. Kaz Tech and West Bloomfield were matched up first round, and Kaz Tech beat West Bloomfield 38-13 in another big high profile matchup there. And he had West Bloomfield in his model winning. I believe Kory and Brett both picked West Bloomfield, and your boy here picked Detroit Kaz Tech. So I got that one last week. Another big game, Chip Valley and Romeo. Coach Couch, who will be coming on a little bit later here, is the former head coach. He was there for 15 years at Romeo. Romeo pulled off a 1-point victory over Chip Valley, 22-21. They'll have a matchup with Macomb Dakota, who is undefeated. They got beat by Macomb Dakota by 1 touchdown in the regular season, so they're matched up in the district championship. Also worth mentioning that Caledonia and Rockford both took care of business big time against other OK Red opponents, Granville and East Kentwood, and will be rematched after playing for the OK Red championship only 2 weeks prior. They will be playing for the district title as well. So a bit of an OK Red district title there with Caledonia and Rockford. That will probably be one of our games that we talk about next week. We did not put that as one of our games of the week for this week, but spoiler alert, just because we're trying to pick some smaller games. So some big upsets there. Something else worth mentioning are Goose Poop likes to track the state championship teams from last season. Final in just the first round, we lost one of the defending state champs, Chelsea. 5-4, got matched up with Charlotte. Charlotte, who is from the Lansing area, is having their best season in 18 years. They are now sitting at 9-1 after upsetting. I believe it would be considered an upset for some people, although Charlotte was the higher seed and hosted Chelsea, but they won 27-15. So that's a very impressive win for Charlotte. Chelsea was only 5-4, had a rough season after their state championship win. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Vince, but Chelsea also got very lucky winning a state championship. They had that massive comeback last year against Hudsonville Unity.
Were they down by 4 scores? They're down by 3 scores at least.
I think, for some reason,
at least
28 points rings a bell, but it might have been like 21.
I didn't realize Chelsea was.
I think they were down 4 scores. Chelsea was undefeated. I think they were down 4 scores in the second quarter and made a 3-score game at halftime or something. They kicked a field goal, I think, and made it like a 24-point game or something. They did something goofy, but
easily one of the best comebacks I've ever seen.
One of the wildest state title games I've ever seen for sure. Even Lansing Catholic, Kory will hate this, at 4-5. Lansing Catholic is moving on. They upset 9-0 Durand first round, 28-21. The rest of the state title teams handled their opponents: Belleville, De La Salle, MLK, GRCC, PW, who's 5-4, and Hudson all handled. I mean, it wasn't even close, their first round opponents. So be curious to see how those teams continue to progress through the playoffs. Something else worth noting here. Speaking of losing team records, Kory's going to love this segment from Goose Poop's newsletter. Goose Poop has a section, More Than Meets the Eye. He is big on talking about some of these teams with losing records, how his model has them ranked and rated. There are currently 6 teams with losing records. I believe there was probably more like double that made the playoffs. There's probably somewhere around a dozen or even more that made the playoffs with losing records this year. And there are 6 that won first round that moved on: Brother Rice, Orchard Lake, Lansing Catholic, Monroe St. Mary Catholic, Sterling Heights Parkway Christian, 5 private schools, and then Benzie Central, who I don't believe is a private school, but
no.
So 5 of the 6 are private schools, all moved on. Benzie Central was 3-6 and won their first round game to get to 4-6. So very interesting. I'm sure Kory is not enjoying that one.
It's just round 1, boys. We'll see what happens.
Do you think any of them will move on, win their district championship?
Oh, I'm sure we're bound to see a couple. It's actually interesting. This was off air, but Coach Couch said he didn't believe that teams with 3 wins should be in either. So I'm not alone in my thought.
It's definitely was very controversial on last week's episode. That's for sure.
Hairy, as we would like to call it. Fishy.
Very fishy. Oh my goodness. All right. With that, gentlemen, should we get into our games of the week for this week?
Yes, Daddy.
All right, Daddy. We are not going to talk about our games of the week from last week. We made our picks off air, with the episode last week being as long as it was our playoff preview episode. We decided to just allow that episode to be simply for the preview, for the high school football playoff preview. So we did not include our 5 games, our picks for college or high school. We posted those to Twitter and Instagram, and we're not going to chat about them. We're going to go ahead and move on with our picks for this week. So our 5 high school games of the week that we are choosing to make picks for. First up, we have Riverview versus Tecumseh. This is probably one of the biggest matchups in the state because there's not very many teams in the second round right now matched up that are both undefeated. And both of these teams are undefeated. Riverview and Tecumseh are both 10-0 in Division 4. How do we want to do picks this week for the playoff preview episode? I believe it was Kory, me, and then Brett. So do you want me to go first?
I think I let it off, but I don't really care. My picks honestly are influenced by either one of you, so we can just go the order on the screen.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm making a comeback this week.
Although you did
Matches.
pull a fast one on me, I thought we had Mona and Forest Hill Central up here as the top game, and now I see it's Riverview Tecumseh. So
I told you I switched it. You weren't listening, Vince.
no, I wasn't
Me?
listening.
Oh, you're calling him Vince?
Anyhow, yeah, I can start us off.
All right. What do you got, Beach? Riverview
All right,
Tecumseh,
so-
D4.
D4 Riverview versus Tecumseh. Both teams 10-0. Tecumseh has very prolific offense, 513 points this year. They broke 47 points in every single game except one, which is extremely impressive. They've even eclipsed 50 or almost 70 points against a good Jackson team. Riverview 366 points this year, 146 points against. I think when it comes down to it, I am going to pick Tecumseh. Tecumseh was a team that was a surprise this year, and I'm going to hop on the bandwagon and hope that they can make it to the regionals.
Yeah, this is Tecumseh's first 10-win season since 1991. It's only their second 10-win season in school history. So obviously very exciting time to be part of that program, I'm sure. I am also going to go with Tecumseh. Brett mentioning their point totals offensively, pretty jaw-dropping. They have not scored less than 47 points in a game they've scored less than 47 in one game. Their third game of the year, they won 35-14, so against Pinckney. The rest of their games, they've scored 47 or more points, including eclipsing 60 in their win over Jackson. So very impressive run here by Tecumseh.
Yeah, after deep diving Riverview's schedule, they really actually play a really weak schedule. Nobody, I think, other than Airport, who I don't even know who Airport is.
It's Carleton Airport.
Carleton Airport, yeah.
Carleton. They were 7-3, but I'm pretty sure the remainder of the teams on their schedule were 500 or below, which is pretty bizarre. So I am also going to follow suit with Tecumseh. I think their offense is too much. They do give up a little bit more points, but when you're scoring 40 plus a game, that doesn't really matter. So
yeah, it's I just want to add one thing. They played 5 opponents who were 500 or better, so they did have a couple early games. Divine Child's 8-2, so that's a pretty good win over a Divine Child team that's playing for district title also in D4, their first game of the year. And then they played New Boston Huron, who is 6-4. As well as
Flat Rock as well.
Well, and Monroe St. Mary Catholic, who's playing for a Division 7 district championship right now, so a much smaller school. But so they did play some good schools. The numbers that Tecumseh's putting up, I think, is very impressive. The next game we have is a D6 matchup between Millington and Standish Sterling. Brett, what do you think for this D6 district title game?
So I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup. This was actually in week 5, one of our top 5 games in the state, and it was a really close game, 28-24. Standish Sterling ended up beating Millington, and Millington ended up on a tear after that loss. They really didn't have a close game the remainder of the year.
Jeez, yeah, their scores are crazy.
Where Standish Sterling had some similar momentum. They did have a vacant game in week 6. And then or week 7, and then they had a very close game in the first round of districts, winning 30-29 over a good Clare team. It's really hard to beat a team twice, but last year, Standish Sterling made a little bit of a run in the playoffs. So I'm thinking that the juniors from last year's team can help lead the team this year's seniors. So I'm going to pick the Panthers as Standish Sterling.
Interesting. Well, there could be some ground covered here this week between Brett and I, because I am going to go with Millington. I think it's very hard to beat a team twice. So I'm going to pick I'm going to pick Millington.
I'm going to follow suit. 470 points for and 123 points against for Millington. They're scoring a lot of points, playing good defense. And like Vince just said, they've played twice this year. It's hard to win twice versus the same team, especially in a game that we would probably classify as a toss-up. So I'm going to take Millington.
All right, this is interesting because Brett and I are all tied up here. Not that I don't think it really matters for Brett. I think it matters more for Kory to make some ground on one of us. All right, moving to the next game. This is our only D1 matchup that we picked for the week. We could have gone with the Rockford Caledonia game, but we just picked the Rockford Caledonia game 2 weeks ago as one of the games that we picked for our game of the week, so we're not going to do that twice in 2 weeks. We went with the Davison-Clarkston game. Davison and Clarkston did play earlier this year. It was actually the first game of the year. Davison won that matchup 28-21. They both ended up losing some games this year. Davison lost one game to Detroit Catholic Central. Clarkston obviously lost to Davison and then dropped another one to a very good West Bloomfield team, also by one score. Brett, what do you got for this one?
This is probably the hardest game to pick, in my opinion. Clarkston won, I think you might have mentioned it, 28-21 earlier this year. Both teams just played a gauntlet.
Davison beat Clarkston.
Davison beat Clarkston 28-20. And both teams played a gauntlet of a schedule this year.
Yeah.
So both teams are extremely battle tested. This game is going to be at Davison. So it's at the Davison Stadium. I think Davison is going to pull this one out. But I think it could really go either way. I think this could potentially be a coin flip game, like Goose Poop likes to say it. But I'm gonna go Davison for my pick.
Oh man, this is a tough one. Two teams like this too. At week one, they're going to be completely different teams 9 weeks later. Obviously, not going to be the same teams, but they are also, these are two teams that I think are playing just about as well as anybody in the state, especially for Division One. I mean, you look at both of these teams' scores, and as Brett mentioned, a gauntlet of a schedule. I mean, you look at the scores they're putting up against really good competition. It's so tough. Interesting little tidbit too is both of these teams had to repeat an opponent week or first round of the playoffs. So Davison beat Grand Blanc week eight, and had to turn around 2 weeks later and beat him again in the playoffs. Clarkston beat Lapeer week 8, and 2 weeks later had to turn around and beat them again in the playoffs. So some very good competition there. I think I'm going to continue my trend of it is so hard to beat a team twice. And I think Clarkston is putting up even more points than Davison right now. So I just feel like this offense that Clarkston's got going and maybe a little bit tougher competition in their conference schedule than what Davison plays. While Davison played some really good non-conference competition in Clarkston, Detroit Catholic Central, Traverse City Central, Walled Lake Western. I just don't think their conference is all that great compared to the Oakland conference that Clarkston's in. So I'm going to go with Clarkston here. So Brett and I differing on a couple picks.
I'm also going to go with Clarkston. Kind of crazy. I'm looking at Clarkston's schedule. 7 of their 9 regular season opponents made the playoffs.
That is pretty crazy.
That's insane. So I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to go with Clarkston. First off, I need to gain some ground on at least one of these chunks.
That's the same for Davison, though. I will chirp in 7 of their 9.
I was just
7 of their 9. Yep. That's crazy.
That's a lot of good teams to play.
And to go through those schedules and win as many games as they did is pretty wild. Yeah. All right. Next game, we got a D7 matchup here. We're actually we're gonna profile 2 D7 games here. We got excuse me, Hudson. Sorry about that. Did we just lose Brett? We just lost Brett. Where did he go? All right. Well, I guess Kory and I will make our picks, and maybe Brett will reappear. If you're watching on YouTube, Brett just disappeared on us here.
You just choked on him when he disappeared. He went down your throat.
Did he disappear right when I choked?
Yeah.
So we got Hudson versus Lumen Christi here. Hudson obviously was in the state championship game last year. You got Lumen Christi, who is a traditional powerhouse. I mean, Lumen Christi has won, a lot of state championships. They're actually my D7 pick for the state title. Hudson won the D8 state title last year against Beale City. So pretty exciting matchup here. And oh man, this is a tough pick too. And I just think Lumen Christie has played better competition overall, and I can't really pick against them because I picked them to win the state title. So it wouldn't really make sense for me to pick against Lumen Christie. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Lumen Christie. Brett, do you want your spot back, or do you want Kory to go ahead and go? I guess Kory can go ahead and go while Brett's figuring out what's going on over there.
Yeah, you're good. I'm going to take Lumen as well. I just was looking, the 3 teams they lost to have a combined record with only 3 losses, and 2 of them to one team. So I'm going to go with Lumen. I think they play a really tough schedule. I think the teams they lost to were elite talents in the state. So I'm going to go with Lumen.
I'll follow suit. I'm picking Lumen Christie too. I just think Lumen Christie is more battle tested. They lost their first 3 games, and they've since won 7 straight. They're on a roll. Really haven't had many close games in the last month or so. So picking Lumen.
They almost look like they fired their defensive coordinator and got a new one type of turnaround. But then also they played 3 elite teams. So
dude, all 3 teams they lost to are in their district title games, and one of them is St. Francis, who's 10-0.
Oh yeah, they were 7-2, 9-0, and
Hastings went 8-1.
Yeah, exactly.
And Hastings Division 4. They're 3 divisions bigger.
I can't believe Hastings is that big. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they're a bigger high school, right?
All right. What's crazy is Lumen used to have almost 900 students in the 80s.
Did they really? They were that big?
Yeah, they're down to 300.
No more Catholics, huh?
Not in the Jack.
All right, our last game is a D8 game. We got Ubly playing Michigan Lutheran Seminary, which is out of Saginaw, I believe, right? Yep, Michigan Lutheran Seminary is out of Saginaw. So you got Ubly, who was in the semifinals last year, lost a close one to Beale City, who went to the state championship. You got a Michigan Lutheran Seminary team here who, not one of the traditional powers in terms of private schools in the state, but nonetheless wins games. And their only loss is to Ithaca. And Ubly is undefeated. Brett, what you thinking?
So I think that Michigan Lutheran Seminary, they play a little bit tougher of a schedule with Ithaca and also Novell Catholic on there. Ithaca is quite a bit of bigger school, and they did lose 18-50. But Ubly's the undefeated team. If my history is correct here in my little bit of research, Saginaw, Michigan Lutheran Seminary, that's a mouthful, has never beaten Ubly. So with that being said, and the way that Ubly is destroying teams, I'm going to pick the Bearcats of Ubly to win this D8 matchup.
The Bearcats of Ubly.
You Ubly. Sorry.
They're just having too much fun with that one. Yeah, this is a tough one. Wait, did you say you picked Ubly or you picked Michigan Lutheran Seminary?
Ubly.
Michigan Lutheran Seminary is a very impressive win. Week 2, they beat Cardinal Mooney, a private school out of Marine City, who's having a pretty good year. It's really hard to figure out how good that team is, though, just because they haven't been a traditional powerhouse either. I think I'm also going to go Ubly. I'm just going to go off the fact that they have a little bit more experience going to the semifinals last year, maybe a team with a chip on its shoulder after not making it to the state title. And man, their defense looks good, as well as their offense, like 492 points for and 56 against.
That's so stupid.
They're averaging almost 500 points a game and averaging only giving up a little bit more than 5 points per game.
They have 3 shutouts, and Bad Axe scored 7, Caro scored 6, Cass City scored 7, Sandusky scored 8, Reese scored 6, and Novell scored 6. That's ridiculous. They're averaging a touchdown a game.
They held every opponent to 8 points or less except for one. One team scored 16 on them. Marriott, who made the playoffs. Yeah. Kory, I'm assuming you're going with Ubly.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ubly. They have a common opponent in Novell Catholic, but the scores are common.
Both blowout scores.
Yeah, and like we just said, Ubly, 56 points scored. That's not even fun. You're going into that game I hope I score a touchdown.
Yeah, what'd you say? They shut out 4 opponents? 3
Three
opponents.
opponents and 4 or 5 only scored a touchdown.
Yeah, that's wild. Incredible. All right. With that, I think we're done with high school, right, gentlemen? Do we want to move into the college ranks here?
Let's do it.
Do it.
All right, so let's talk about
Kory,
what
real
do you got?
quick. I did get
Yep.
confirmation that I'm good to go for the game on Friday.
What game you guys going to?
I think we're going to Mona Forsyth Central. That's what we had talked about.
That'll be
Primarily because last year, I'd love to go to the Grand Lodge game, but I want to stick around the GR area.
That's right. You get to watch us at Rockford next Friday.
Yeah, that's true.
Saturday.
That's true. Last year, the only high school game I went to was Rockford Grand Lodge, so I don't want my only game to be Rockford again this year. And I figured I'll go watch Grand Lodge play Rockford next week. So
There you go.
and I got to watch the hometown team. I've never seen them play before.
There you go. Good matchup.
The Rangers.
Big time matchup.
Go Power Rangers.
All right, gentlemen, let's talk about our college games of the week. First up, very suiting with our guest who will be joining us here just very shortly, Alma College, ending the season with 2 tough games here. They are hosting Adrian, who is 5-3. Alma sitting at 8-0 for the first time since 1968, which we'll talk with Coach Couch here shortly. Gentlemen, who do you got? Alma Scots or the Adrian Dogs?
I'm going to pick Alma. I think Alma's got a prolific offense. That's the second time I've used that adjective on this podcast tonight, but it's very fitting for Alma's offense. Adrian has a decent defense, but the game's in Alma, and then Alma's got more to play for at this point in the season, so I think Alma's going to beat Adrian.
I think I'm also going to go with Alma. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. Alma has won a couple close games this year. Recently, they beat Hope by 2 points on October 15th. So that was a very close game, a big game for them. And then they did play a 2-score game at Olivet last weekend. That was a big win at Olivet. Olivet is also having a heck of a season. Adrian has two losses, or 3 losses overall, but a loss to Heidelberg early on, who was nationally ranked, and then nationally ranked Albion. And then they did get beat, I believe, by Trine. I think that was their one conference loss, if I remember correctly. Let me make sure I don't. Yes, Trine by 6. So I'm also going to go with Alma. I think they're playing about as well as anyone right now.
Yeah, I think Alma Scott Nation does stand up and they win this one.
It's a unanimous pick then. Unanimous pick. All right, our next game, we have another MIAA matchup, and it is the team that will meet Alma in Alma the following Saturday for the regular season finale, and that is Albion. Number 19 ranked Albion is playing Olivet. Albion is the only team currently ranked nationally. Alma is very close. They have a ton of votes right now. They're just outside the top 25. Should they win this week, maybe this will be a top 25 matchup if Albion and Alma can both take care of business. What are we thinking?
I got Albion here. Albion's a better team from top to bottom. They got a good offense, a good defense. They have a really good combination in the quarterback. Jack Bush and Mark Taco, who's one of the top receivers in D3. Olivet's got a solid game on the ground, really good rushing attack. They have pretty much a 3-headed monster, but I have Albion winning this game and hopeful for the battle of the unbeatens in Alma versus Albion next week.
The crazy thing is Olivet started the year 5-0 and has dropped.
Fallen off, man.
They've dropped 3 straight. Now they lost to Trine in triple overtime by 2 points. So that was when the losing skid started. But then they went to Hope, who also had a rough stretch in this season, but got beat 23-0 at Hope. So that was a pretty ugly loss for Olivet. And then obviously Alma just beat them 49-35. So rough stretch here for Olivet. If they lose at Albion, which I am also going to pick Albion, that's going to put them at 5-4, and then they have to go to Adrian. So not looking easy, as we'll talk about with Coach Couch here shortly. The MIAA is a bit of a gauntlet.
Yo, Adrian. I am also going to take Albion. Thanks for speaking for me, Vince.
I just assumed. Brett, is that your mic?
I was fixing it. Yeah.
Okay. Just make him.
Wrestling it.
As you're wrestling with your microphone over there. Wrestling with your microphone. All right. Unanimous pick number 2. Moving on to Davenport at Ferris State. Got a GLIAC football matchup here. Davenport coming off of probably their biggest win in program history. They're only a football program that's played in the GLIAC for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. They've only existed for about 7 or 8. They were a startup program back in, I think, 2014 or 2015. At one point, they played like basically all exhibition games, and then they were independent, and then they joined the GLIAC. So they've been trying to find a rhythm and get off the ground, and they're now ranked number 13 nationally. They're undefeated. They won at Saginaw Valley, who was also ranked nationally with only losses to Ferris and Grand Valley. Saginaw Valley had a huge win over Indianapolis, too, who was a top 10 team. So a very impressive win for Davenport. But now they have to go on the road and play at number 7 Ferris State, who is obviously the defending national champs. What do you guys think about this matchup?
So not to discredit anything that Davenport did last week in their game for Saginaw Valley State, but Saginaw Valley starting quarterback Andrew Brito, the transfer from University of Central Florida, did not play in the game. But they did have a backup quarterback, Jarius Grissom, that played. He looks more of like the dual threat type. He had 140 yards through the air and 149 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground last week for Saginaw Valley in the tight loss to Davenport. But I think Ferris State is going to be a lot for Davenport to handle. And as much as I'd like to see Davenport be undefeated and go play Grand Valley next week as 2 unbeatens, I do think that Ferris State's gonna get the W here, especially being home at Top Taggart Field in Big Rapids.
Ferris State is coming off of a 56-20 win up in the UP at Northern Michigan as well. So they won a tight game the week before against Michigan Tech. So that was a bit of a hangover, I think, from the Grand Valley loss, but I think they're back on track. I'm also going to go with Ferris State. I don't see them losing at home to Davenport. I think Davenport will be probably as competitive as they've ever been against Ferris State. I'd be curious to go back. I didn't get a chance to look. I'd be curious to go back and see what their closest game has ever been with Ferris State. But yeah.
So I've got some points to make up. So I actually can't follow suit. For Davenport to go out to go to Saginaw Valley and beat a Saginaw Valley State team who's now played 5 ranked opponents. We forgot the Bowie State win, and they were ranked.
Right. Bowie State has lost a few games since, so they were probably a little overrated, but still.
But regardless, they were ranked at the time. I do take into account Brett's point on Saginaw's quarterback, but I'm going to say Davenport's going to go up. They're going to upset Ferris State, and who knows, they may even give Grand Valley a run for the money and just snag a GLIAC championship.
Brett's noise there.
But to my defense, Davenport's head coach is a Tony Anise disciple, so who knows? Could know some things.
Sparky McEwen.
So if Tony Anise is the Nick Saban of D2, his disciples always will struggle to beat him, which is true so far.
This isn't Star Wars, Brett. Jesus.
All right. With that, gentlemen, let's get into our one Division I game that we picked this week. So we picked Western Michigan playing against Bowling Green on the road at Bowling Green. The MAC teams have not been doing so hot this year. Eastern Michigan is about the only one having a somewhat successful season. Brett, what do you got?
So this is going to kick off action, coinciding with Central's game tomorrow at 7 p.m. But Western's playing on ESPN2 at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And Bowling Green is 4-4 on the year. Western is 3-5. They have similar opponents in Miami of Ohio, with Western winning 16-10 and Bowling Green winning 17-13. So a couple of low-scoring affairs. I do think that Bowling Green is going to get the win in this game. Western's has kind of a non-existent offense lately, and they got a young freshman quarterback. But I think that Bowling Green is going to win this game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Bowling Green as well. I would echo that the offense for Western Michigan, you go through the scores of their games, not very impressive. Whereas you have a team in Bowling Green who has put up some big numbers, 57 points, 34 points, 31, 34. They struggled at times this year as well, so I could see this being a close game. But this game is also down at Bowling Green, Ohio. So I'm going to give them the home field advantage here and go with Bowling Green.
The weather should be beautiful down there too, which is going to be fantastic for some action football. I would love to take Western Michigan just to give myself some hope, but I'm going to take Bowling Green just because of the point differentials, points scored. I just think Bowling Green's offense is going to be too much for Western.
All right, our last game of the week here is the Detroit Lions. Oh my God, have they been miserable? Another one-score loss, frustrating as can be. I mean, it's just comical at this point how often they lose by one score. It's comical. Brett, do you want to kick us off here?
I'm going with the Lions.
Oh,
I think the Lions are going to beat the Packers this week. The Packers season, in the face of Packer fans, is probably more of a devastation than the Lions season is to Lions fans. The Packers have really struggled on offense this year. They haven't scored more than 24 points in a game, and that game where they scored 24 points was in overtime. But I will say that Aaron Rodgers just doesn't have the weapons that he used to have. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are both, not to bring Tom Brady in the conversation, but they're both struggling a little bit right now. Historically, Green Bay plays the Lions really well, but I think that in all the games where the Lions have had close games, I think that if it's close to Green Bay, I think they can pull it out. So I'm going with the Lions, baby.
Is this one in Detroit or at Green Bay?
It's at Detroit.
Oh, that's a big key factor. I think I am also going to go with the Lions. I went against the Lions the last two times that we did NFL games, but I got some hope here. They're playing a team like Brett mentioned in Green Bay that usually they get up for, right? One of the 3 wins the Lions had last year was at the end of the season against a Packers team where they did bench some of their best players, but they found a way to win in Detroit. I feel like the Lions usually win when they win against Green Bay. It's in Detroit. It's not very often that they go into Green Bay and get a victory. So,
for the sake of spicy wings, I'm going to take Green Bay.
What?
I know. As the biggest Lions fan on this podcast, I'm going to pick against them, which means they will win this week. So you guys are welcome. Will you put fudge in front of that Packers, please?
Kory was really hoping we'd go Green Bay so he could go.
I was really hoping, but
I saw the look on your face. And you're like, what? He's like,
no.
But I will just eat my Wheaties and.
I think Kory, at this point, you're going to get wings either way, and one of these two.
Whoa. You're lucky I like hot shit. I might just baby bird these wings.
I might eat one with you when we record it.
For the sake of your anus and your bowel movements, please don't.
I think those are doomed regardless if he has a wing or not.
Very true.
All right. With that, we are going to move into the interview for this episode. Thank you for listening so far. Please make sure after the interview with Coach Jason Couch, the head coach of Alma College, is coming on to chat with us. When that interview is done, please make sure you stay on as we will wrap up the episode. We're going to talk a couple news points with college football as well as the Lions, and then we'll get into a recommendation of the week. Going to go ahead and segue into the interview portion of the podcast here for episode 35. We have a very special guest. We're very excited to welcome on Coach Jason Couch, the head football coach at Alma College. He is in his 5th season in that position. It's also his alma mater, played there from 1993 to 1996, where he was a starting center on the offensive line for 3 years, winning the team's top offensive lineman award, becoming first team all-conference MIAA, as well as an honorable mention All-American in his senior season. coached a few years in high school football as an assistant before being named one of Romeo's 2 head coaches in 2003. Was there for 15 years in that position as well as offensive coordinator, where he had 14 playoff appearances, won the 2015 state title, and then became the head football coach at Alma College in 2018. Coach, how you doing?
Great. Thank you. That's a very nice introduction. I appreciate it. And made me feel old a little bit thinking back to the good old days of 93 through 96 Alma College football. But no, actually a lot with this type of season that we're having, a lot of memories have been brought back because alumni are very excited. And
people love a winning team.
They do. And it's obviously great. I probably share almost too much. The guys keep hearing, oh, I heard from this alum, and they're like, okay, coach, I know you're getting 20 emails. You don't have to tell us about all a day, that is,
It's
but
fun and exciting. It's definitely a sport, as I'm sure you can attest to this with high school football too, and college. It's what have you done for me lately kind of sport. People want to see winning, and they want to see success, right? And when you're not, they're not talking to you or about you. When you are, everyone's on the bandwagon.
Yep. Even my dogs are saying hello this year, right? I mean, after a loss, even the dogs run away. They don't want to talk to you, But no, it's been a great season. We mentioned alums, but to hear from the 68 team, the last team to go 8-0, offering words of encouragement and saying hey, you've got this, you can have a better record than us. That is so unselfish, and they just want to see the success of Scott's football and Alma College in general, and that's heartwarming. It's a true test of their love and of the college, so it's awesome.
So going off of that, obviously pretty exciting, 8-0 for the first time since, as you mentioned, 1968. And to kind of spin off that, you guys have been 500 or better every season since 2020. So that success, obviously very exciting. What in the off season, or maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, as you've been kind of getting into the program and building up your program, did you kind of see this coming? Was this kind of a surprise? Especially as we mentioned to you, as you're well aware, you got 2 freshman studs, running back Eddie Williams and quarterback Carter St. John, 2 freshmen who I'm sure, are kind of taking the MIAA by storm.
They're playing okay. They're outstanding. We have more. There's quite a few more than 2 that are.
Oh yeah, it's a team sport.
But freshmen in general that are contributing, right?
Right.
So, the buildup of this, I think in 2018 when I was hired in, instantly, okay, how am I going to go in transition from high school to college? I had faith in my passion, my love for this institution, my desire. I knew that nobody would outmatch my will to want to work and win here. But I didn't know how to come in and do the stories of the Urban Meyer lock the door and make guys run until they quit type of stuff at Bowling Green. And that's not me. But I did probably wait too long. And it was after the first season that the coaching staff and I sat down for 2 days and between the holidays, when no students were around, we just kind of locked ourselves here in our coaches' offices. And I said, okay, who are we? Who do we want to become? What do we want to be known for? What is Alma College? If you overheard people talking, they didn't know you're listening, but what do you want to hear? And right, a lot of things get thrown out there, and nobody said every single year conference champions, because that's unrealistic to win it every single year. But we wanted to gain the respect to be in consideration every single year, preseason polls, and when scheduling comes out, people go, damn, what's Alma again this year, right? And I don't think, I know preseason rankings and everything else came out, and we weren't in that consideration. And so that's a little bit of motivation and a little bit of fuel, right? But so that was 2019, and that's also when we came up with our quote unquote culture. Right? So kilt style came out of that, and I mean that's what it's become. We've trademarked it and all that good stuff. But kilt style is kinship, integrity, love, and tenacity. And if we display those four things, and then they add style on it because it's just cool. Part of it, one of the coaches would say, well, something with kilt. You like surprised a lot of people by wearing a kilt on the sideline. And so let's do something. And that's where the acronym of kilt and kilt style came from. But that embedded, and we embedded that in everything that we had to talk it, we had to explain it, we had to, and then it just became, okay, now we shouldn't need to, we should just live it, right? And guys bought into that. In 2019, we went from 2-8 in my first year to a 6-4, and really had the potential to maybe 7. 8 would have been an upset in there maybe, but we were there, right? And everybody, and I understand everybody can say, COVID really hurt.
Yep.
But we rely everything that we do, the kilt style culture we talk about, every bit of it is held up by relationships. If we don't build strong relationships in this program, then everything's going to crumble. And so that's why, I took pictures actually today, because I think we had 50 different players in different offices down here in our coaches' suites, just some hanging out, some watching film, some acting like they're studying,
That sounds about right.
You're not studying when there's 50 guys around, but they want to be together.
Yep.
They want to be around, right? And that's good stuff. So it's relationships. And so with COVID, guys couldn't come over to my house and have dinner. We weren't allowed to do any of that stuff. Our recruiting, it was tough. It was like one-time visit and then Zooms. And I think everybody in the world got tired of that.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of put a hurt, I guess, a little bit. And then here we go back into it. But by that, we had to reteach in 2021. So we played those 2 games in that spring, 1-1. Fall of 2021, we had to kind of reteach, that culture part. And, it really dawned on us when we went for our first overnight. Over 80% of the guys have never done an overnight because,
wow.
Right, you're that year out already, and most of the freshmen didn't travel. Then, so it was like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
And our conference is tough as heck. So, we started off well. We were 4-0, but even I knew, okay, that the tough ones are coming. We won some games that we should have won by close margins, and then the conference came and we didn't do well, and we finished 5-5. So then we go back to the team in January, this year's team. And we presented them with, we're kind of big, I guess, on acronyms here with our this year's slogan saying, kilt style is always going to be there. That's us. That's the entire program. But we went with climb, and then we used the climb stuff. So commitment, leadership, intensity, maturity, and belief. Belief to me was the one that we were lacking. And I heard Jim Harbaugh talk about it after, and many of his players talk about it. They hadn't won a conference championship since 2004? Was it 4?
Yeah.
So it had been such a long time for them. And when I heard that number, I was like, holy cow, I wouldn't have thought it was that long, right? But those players kept talking about, we believed that we could do it this year. And so we used those 5 letters, those 5 terms as our teaching points. What is commitment? And I took that week, right? And commitment was, and then I used the 1980 Miracle on Ice, the Olympic hockey team. They were and we focused on championship teams that showed commitment. And I just love that story and that team and everything about it, right? And so I use that. And then other coaches use other championship teams to show how those terms are embedded in a winning program. And then the last one, and I think we probably come back to belief the most, because if you don't truly believe it, it's not going to happen, right? And our guys, it took a couple wins. It took our offense was about as bad as it could be last year. And then they saw some signs in the early games of, holy cow, we can put up some numbers. This tempo stuff that we're doing is fun, and putting defenses in tough situations, and we're capitalizing on it. And whoa, we got some pretty good, added guys with all but one returner, right? And so they're believing, and it's really fun to watch. Fun to be a part of.
Absolutely, it's always fun to be a part of a winning team. Like I said, the fans and alumni want to be a part of it too. But when you're on the staff and players on that team, there's nothing better than coming in the locker room every week and celebrating a win. That's for sure.
Two things though. Sorry to cut you.
No, you're good.
That I have to mention. I mean, there was one coach that changed, but the rest of the coaching staff came back. And I love, everybody's hearing the same words and the same, right? Everybody's on the same page. And, last year, our offensive staff really didn't get put together till August. And it's like, well, I was using this. Oh, no, what I mean? And that's not good, right? And so just culturally, but also on the field, everybody is on the same page. And then I don't think you ever win without some good, strong leaders, and senior leaders. And we've got 25 seniors that they want it. They're excited, and they gritted their teeth and put on their masks through a year and a half.
Yep.
Crap. Excuse me, but it wasn't a normal college life for them.
No, absolutely not. I don't think any student athlete at any level that had to go through that year, that suffered through it. I mean, wanted that to happen, especially the kids, in college and high school who lost seasons, but seasons canceled. That's it's terrible. But speaking of putting up points, I just want anyone listening or watching here, just want to list this off. If you're not familiar with Alma's schedule this year, 6 of their last 7 games, 49, 45, 69, 40, 45, 49, averaging more than 40 points per game. And that's got to be a lot of fun to see that offense taking off and having the coaches and the kids all on the same page. I can't imagine the feeling on game day putting up points like that. But speaking of which, you got 2 big opponents coming up. Obviously, you've played a couple tough ones here in the last 4 weeks, as we'll kind of get to in a little bit here. The MHSAA is not an easy conference, and it hasn't been for the last several years, I would say, to go through. There's not really any, this team will beat kind of teams on the schedule. Everyone's, bringing their A game, and everyone's got a lot of good competition. But Adrian and Albion, last 2 teams to end the season here, last 2 games in the MHSAA for you. And Adrian at 5-3, Albion also sitting undefeated right now. 2 very tough opponents. You get them both at home though, so that's gotta be a nice way to end the season, especially after back-to-back away games. How you guys feeling going into these last 2 games?
Oh, we're excited. It's all about each and every day. I thought from a practice standpoint, we won today. We had a very good day of practice. Started a little bit slow, but guys got back into the groove.
They can't complain about the weather.
Oh my gosh. I said, I know I've sweat in November before, a few extra pounds here, but never in shorts and a t-shirt. That's for sure. But no, that's all season, and you know, you can say it and say it and say it, but I think our guys truly see it in that we have to win each practice so that we're better on Saturday, and that's all our focus is. So for offensive standpoint, it was third down conversions. We were about dead last year, and now I think, and I'm talking in the nation, and now
Wow.
I think we lead the MIAA, because it's an emphasis, right?
Yep.
And so guys are going to respond. What we preach and what we get excited about and what we emphasize is what they're going to take ownership of, right? And so celebrate those victories, you know, in practice and whatnot. So
it's those minute details too at the college level that you have to turnovers. I mean, turnovers are important at all levels of football, but turnovers, third downs, scoring on short field, whatever it might be. Sure. I mean, at the college level, it's,
you know, we have one I really like this year. Well, we have our goal board, right? And, you know, we get to put up the offensive symbol if we get it, and defense puts up theirs if they get theirs. But, you know, first downs on every drive, the first down. And we have to be at 80%. And we were at 79 again. We were again at 79% against Albion, and we didn't get to put that sticker up. And guys were like, oh, you know. But now they're fired up. Like, yes, I see why. You know, you get that first down, and now and one potentially can change field possession, right? Position if you've got a punt, get you out of an end zone, whatever it might be. But for our tempo, it just leads us to hurry up and line up and you know, try and get their defense, you know, caught off guard a little bit. But you know, these last 2 weeks are awesome. I mean, you know, to dream about it in August, to be where we're at, you know, seems like that's all it was. But again, you take it day by day, and here we are. And I know there's excitement on campus. The local paper wants me to, you know, respond after this, and they're asking players, and that's fun stuff, right? Yep. It's a small campus, so that energy, I think, becomes a little contagious. And so I think we're going to have a great crowd on Saturday, both Saturdays, but I'm certainly not looking ahead. And I know I've been asked a lot, come on, Albion's, you know, new undefeated. I'm like, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest with you, I learned from experience. In 2016, we made it to state semifinals, and so did Utica Eisenhower. And in my mind, and I know a couple of their coaches because, you know, I'm friends with them, but oh my gosh, can you imagine what Ford Field would be? Because those two schools are only separated by 5 miles, right? Yep. I mean, they're right there. And we went north and west, and they went south, and so we would have met at Ford Field, even though we're only 5 miles apart.
That's crazy to think about.
And then we lost to Catholic Central, and they lost to Cass Tech, and neither one of us got to do it. So don't look ahead, just look
ahead. Yep.
Each day.
That's a good life lesson. Well, I don't want to get you looking ahead, but for anyone listening, I just want to mention pretty exciting, because if Adrian, if that's a game that Alma can dominate like they have been, that would get them to get you guys to 9 wins, which would be your most wins since 2002. And then if you guys can finish out the season with a big win over Albion, obviously first conference title since 2004. So that's you're right there with Jim Harbaugh. You're right there with Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. Same year, yeah. 2004.
Yep. I get the khaki pants, I guess. I don't know.
And the big dip in your mouth on the sideline.
Yeah.
So couple other questions here before we wrap things up with you here, Coach. Obviously talking about the strength of the MIAA, you know, 3rd straight year, if you don't count COVID, where every team except for Kalamazoo, I believe, sorry, Coach White. We had Coach Whitehead on earlier this year. Sorry, Coach Whitehead. But Kalamazoo is the only team that has not been 500 or better the last 3 seasons, excluding COVID. So still pretty impressive that every team winning 5 or more games over the last 3 seasons. And then now we're going to see a new school added with Calvin University getting a football program in a couple of years. Obviously, you guys are focused on this season, but any thoughts on adding one more conference opponent in a few years and losing a non-conference game?
So selfishly, the negative will be, wow, that's one more football program in the state of Michigan that's
right.
we're going to compete for with recruits. And, I became friends with a coach from one of the Wisconsin D3s, and you look at, he was talking to me about recruiting in Wisconsin and then the number of transfers that they get there, because it's University of Wisconsin, and then University of Wisconsin, Platteville, La Crosse, all those, we can go through them. But so it's the equivalent of University of Michigan, and then University of Michigan, Alma, Albion, Adrian,
right.
And that's it.
Yep.
So there's so much competition for recruits in the state of Michigan. I think, 18 football programs or something.
We talk about it on the podcast all the time, the football schools in the state now with 4 NAIA schools. You got 2 GLIAC conferences now with Hillsdale, Northwood, and the GMAC, or 2 D2 conferences, excuse me, the GLIAC and the GMAC, but a lot of college football to compete with.
Right. But, it's great for high school student athletes in Michigan. So about adding them, one thing that is really nice, they fill that void that we lost when Finlandia dropped out of the conference a few years ago. Which has caused us to have to go out and find another opponent in week 4. So previously it was always find game 1 and 2. We do a crossover week 3, and then everybody in the conference would have a bye week 4, and then here comes conference play.
Gotcha.
Now it's go out, find your week 4. Your bye will fall whenever you would have played Finlandia. Well, if you look, Hope this year, last week of the season, so they had to play 10 straight games. And then,
man, I didn't realize that.
Tough.
Wow.
And
real tough.
I think, was it Olivet? I believe had first week bye because they couldn't find a team to play, so they filled their later schedule and had a first week bye. That's tough too. Doing 10 in a row is just a bruising on the bodies. And so anyways, I think that Kelvin coming in will offer us some of that balance right now.
Right.
We can basically go back. I don't know when it's going to be. The article I read said next year. I got to believe they're recruiting next year. I can't imagine. A team next year.
I don't know how they do that either.
Right. So, and then, we'll have contracts that we have to discuss and whatnot with that week 4 opponents down the road. But, I'm excited for it. I be honest, I don't know a ton about Kelvin only because they don't have football. I do remember, and I've been over there to watch our women's and men's basketball team compete.
Big rivalry with Hope.
Yeah, and so that'll be interesting to add that rivalry, on the football field, and they've had that established for a long time on the basketball court. So
adds another cool mascot to the MIAA's got a lot of unique mascot names.
They do.
Now you get the Knights.
Yep.
You got the Britons and the Scots, and you got the Thunder, and now the Knights. A lot of really unique mascot names.
Dutch Bulldogs.
Dutch, right?
Yep. No, so I think again we'll see when they come in, but hey, it's great, right? If it's good for students and current high school, get another option for them. I say it to every single recruit that sits in my office. You have to find your home, right? You've got to find that place that feels right to you. We have a really high retention rate here. And I think, and then even higher, guys that say, maybe playing football isn't for me, but they stay on campus. That's what it's about. If a kid kid might come here and say, yeah, I don't know, and go to Calvin and say, this is my home. That's better for that person. And hopefully for all of us, they go on to do great things in life. Right. I mean, so that to me, it's going to be added competition, but am I really going to get that kid if that's their fit compared to here? And so find your home wherever it is. And it should be some of the best 4 years and most fun, and, getting a great education while you get to play an unbelievable sport. That's what it's all about. So.
Well, it sounds like you pretty much just about answered my last question, but if you have anything else you want to add to it, my last question was going to be, why should high school players, any high school football athletes who might be listening to this or watching, why should they consider playing for Alma College?
Well, I think just that. If you don't come here and see, you won't know if this is the right fit for you. I went to a lot of different colleges. My mom and I traveled around when I went on the recruiting trail. I came here, met with Coach Jim Cole, who's still a friend, a mentor. I hired his son as my special teams and defensive backs, but special teams coordinator. I hired now his son-in-law is my offensive line coach. So just I
That's
came
awesome.
here though, met him, walked
Mm-hmm.
and just drive home. I told my mom, I said, this was it. And she's like, good. I felt it too. Right. And
You
so,
know, and you know.
and then, I'll throw a little bit of a sales pitch out there is you get to play a sport while getting a great education. You can go travel abroad if that's something that you want to do.
Yep.
Obviously not in the fall.
Yeah.
But we're actually in the middle of planning a trip to Scotland in April 2024 as a football program.
That's
and
cool.
We're going to play the East Kilbride Pirates in a exhibition game over there.
That is
And,
sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the Scots in Scotland, right? Where else did we go? So it was actually
You really are like Jim Harbaugh. He does all these trips too. Jeez, look at this.
Well, he has an alum that I think pays for it also. If there's any Alma alum out there that are, but I mean, it's going to be. It was planned in 2020, and a month before we have a pandemic, and it got canceled.
Oh man, right.
So I've waited until hopefully we're all good by then, right? And,
yeah, seriously.
But what a great experience. It'll be 7 to 10 days of traveling with your buddies and playing a game, and it'll be a great experience.
That's
that was
really cool.
That would sell me. That's a pretty cool sales pitch.
No,
So.
I got a year of eligibility. I can come back.
Come on. So not NCAA, right? Sponsored or whatnot. So technically, even though I don't have eligibility left, I could play. So some guys have asked. The first half coaching a kilt, second half.
Oh my goodness.
Pads, but
That's funny.
I
That's
know
hilarious.
I couldn't make it a whole half. It'd be play.
I love it. Well, I think that is a great thing. Sales pitch, and thing to end it on. I love it. That's great. Coach, we appreciate your time. We know you got to get back to prepping for Adrian. So thank you so much for coming on. We wish you guys the best of luck against Adrian and Albion in the upcoming weeks. You obviously got to take it 1 week at a time, but good luck, Coach.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Really do. Your social media has been fun to follow, and so thanks for what you're doing.
Absolutely. That's our pleasure. We're enjoying it. Yeah, if you're listening right now, please stay on. We will finish up the episode here shortly. Hope you enjoyed our conversation there with Coach Couch of Alma College. Head football coach for Alma is obviously having a heck of a season. Coach Very excited to see how you and the team, your staff and team finish out the year. Looking forward to a strong finish to the season. Good luck with this upcoming week with Adrian as well as with Albion to finish out the season. With that, we're going to get into some news here with college football as well as the Lions, and then we'll wrap things up with, I believe, Brett has a recommendation for this week. So first, we'd be remiss not to bring up, this is not, a podcast where we talk exclusively about news, but we do talk about Michigan college football, Michigan high school football, everything college, everything football in the state of Michigan. So Michigan State, gotta talk about this. Obviously, the game was played last weekend. Very sloppy, boring.
I wouldn't say it was sloppy from the Michigan side. They just didn't convert on fourth down or third down in the red zone. So
I think State's defense is also getting improved with Henderson back and with Slade back. They just, two all Big Ten guys just joined their defense. So.
Right, they did get some good players back that have been out with injuries, so that definitely helped. Helped them in the run game with a very good run rush offense in Michigan. Obviously, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, very good running backs, so it helps to have some good run defenders back to limit them a little bit more. I think what was the halftime score? 13-7, I believe, was the halftime score, and then the final was 29-7. I was at Kory and I were at our friend's house watching. As he knows, I was kind of half watching because at this point as a Michigan State fan, I'm not checked out from the season, but I don't know. It's kind of checked out. I got other things on my mind and on my plate than to get upset about the Michigan State Spartans having a rough season. So I'm focused on the team that I'm coaching. But so you guys want to talk first about Michigan's win, and then obviously I think we're going to have to talk a little bit about the post-game bullshit. But
yeah, I'll just chime in a little bit because Brett will have a little bit better perspective being at the game. But I think Michigan did what Michigan's been doing, ran the ball really well, struggled in the passing game, not mightily, but smidgenly. I would say their struggles in the red zone, to me, aren't super alarming. They're not great, but it's not like, oh my God, the world's on fire. So that's kind of my take, and then we can all discuss the tunnel incident after Brett gives his crack at the game.
Yeah, so it was a really sweet atmosphere. My wife Olivia and I got down to the game like 4 hours before game time. We really weren't planning on tailgating heavily. We just had some friends that we were meeting in two separate areas, but we struggled to find a parking spot anywhere. We had to park 2 miles from the stadium and walk in. Everything was sold out. It was insane how many people were down there. But as far as the game goes, it was honestly a pretty boring game to be at, just because there wasn't a lot of excitement on the offensive side of things. It was just 5 yards here, 8 yards, a punt.
I don't think there was very many explosive plays.
No, I think Michigan only had one play over 25 yards, and it was a pass to Ronnie Bell, I think it was.
Michigan State's one touchdown. I think the play leading up to it were their only explosive plays. Right. That was right in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and I think that really, a reason why there wasn't a lot of explosive plays is, number one, Michigan's got a really good defense, and State's offense is mediocre, and State's run game is just pretty much non-existent.
Mediocre is a compliment.
Yeah, I don't know if State's broke 100 yards in a few weeks on the ground. But anyways, Michigan didn't really have to try to take shots. They controlled the entire game. So it's hard for me to judge, is Michigan's pass game struggling, but they really didn't take any shots. I mean, in a game like this, you just got to win, and you got to do it's easy, and you just got to grind it out and play bully ball. And that's what Michigan's done a great job with this season. And with 5 field goals, 5 field goals, if you turn those into touchdowns, that's 20 points. So you're looking at 49-7. And that's essentially what the game felt like, even though the final score is 29-7. So Michigan State, they have to either upset Illinois or upset Penn State to make a bowl game this year. They go down to Champaign to play a really good Illinois team. So if they lose that game, their bowl hopes are going to be grim. But for Michigan, they got their whole season in front of them still. The playoff poll is out tonight. Looks like Michigan's number 5. I'm not going to fret about that. Michigan will be in the top 4 next week, assuming they take care of business against Rutgers, just because Tennessee and Georgia are playing this week in Athens. So, I guess that's really my take on the game. I wish it would have been more competitive just from an entertaining point of view, but it's always good to have lopsided victory too. And I guess, I don't know, Vince, if you want to segue into the tunnel. So my wife and I left the game after Blake Corum scored his last touchdown. And apparently after that, I think there was the next series when Michigan had the ball, he was in the bottom of a pile and he was getting punched at the bottom of the pile, and they caught that on camera. And from what I've been hearing on podcasts this week, that kind of sparked things. And then after the game, there was some pushing and shoving on the field. And then that led into the tunnel, where Michigan had Jaden McBurrows and Jamon Green, two defensive backs. I apparently go in the tunnel early every game. In my opinion, the easiest, I mean, this is now 2 weeks in a row that they've had issues in the tunnel. They've had 600 plus games in the big house. I mean, these are just two anomalies. And I just think if you separate them, there's not going to be any issues. I mean, it's that easy. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that what Michigan State did was okay by any means. I mean, I've played football before, and I'm also a man, and I know that guys like to talk crap to each other. And I know Michigan probably said something in the tunnel that sparked this thing with Michigan State, which, I mean, that's just friendly banter. That's just how sports is. It's competition. But yeah, I think Michigan State absolutely took it one step, two or maybe in 3 steps too far. The video is crazy. It looks like something you'd see in like the movie Gridiron Gang.
When did we start swinging helmets to hit people? It literally blows my freaking mind, man. We've seen it in the NFL with Myles Garrett. Yeah, and then it happened this past year with Aaron Donald, which the NFL like kind of like brushed under the rug, like, like
I didn't even know that happened because I don't watch a ton of NFL games during high school football season. I'm just too busy, and I'll watch the Lions. That's about it. I didn't know that happened until I saw people in follow up to this Michigan State incident mentioning how the NFL basically gave slaps on the wrist to Myles Garrett. And I saw Aaron Donald. I was like, when did Aaron Donald hit somebody with a helmet? I didn't even realize that.
In my opinion, if you swing a helmet, you should be done for a season. Period.
It's assault with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, you could literally kill somebody.
You could kill somebody.
If you watch the video of the Michigan State players,
it's messed up, dude.
It's pretty messed up because what happens is the one guy starts swinging his helmet, and the other Michigan State guy puts his helmet on. Yes, because he knows like it's about to go down.
Yeah, and I don't think Jamon Green even had his helmet because a lot of those guys just running without their helmets.
I rewatched the video, and there's a security guy holding a Michigan player's helmet. So I think when it started that he like dropped it or lost it, and then one of the security guys picked it up because I saw him. He
tries to put his helmet on. Jamon Green's holding his helmet and he drops it, and he was trying to put it on. And that other Michigan State player, I think when he grabbed him, it made him drop his helmet.
Yeah, I think that was Jacoby Windman that grabbed him. But nonetheless, Kory put this in our notes. Michigan State now has 8 players suspended. Jacoby Windman, Brandon Wright, cornerbacks Justin White and Malcolm Jones are the 4 new players, and they're joining the previously suspended players Angelo Gross, Zion Young, Kari Crump, and Tank Brown. So the list is just getting longer for Michigan State. Have they announced what the suspensions are? Or is it just an indefinite?
They said they're indefinitely suspended while everything's being investigated. I would imagine the guys on film swinging helmets would be dismissed from the program. I don't know how you let them to continue unless I don't know.
I think they're going to face some legal issues.
That's the other thing is the family for was it Jamon Green?
Yeah.
They already said they got a lawyer. I mean, dude, it's assault with a deadly weapon. I mean, if those guys are prosecuted, the couple guys are going to go to jail.
The problem now is that the NFL has let these things go with just a couple game suspension or even no suspension. So that doesn't help the case for anybody. The
only thing I would say is in the NFL games, didn't both those situations? Now I'm not trying to justify them or say that they're okay, but didn't they happen during the game on the field? I know the Myles Garrett one did.
Yeah, the other one was at practice. Joint practice with the Rams and I don't even know who, the 49ers or the Rams.
Right. So this one's a little bit different. I mean, it's bad. It's all bad. But I mean, this situation where it's like the game is over, you're like going to the locker room and you basically jumped. I mean, a guy basically got jumped by like 10 dudes. I mean,
these guys are all getting, well, I can't speak for all of them, but I know Jacoby Wimmon's getting paid. I mean, he transferred here from UNLV. He's definitely getting paid. This is a job. Can you imagine just swinging a helmet at like your coworker, not your coworker, but like a competitor of yours that you pass in the hallway like at conference?
They're colleagues. I mean, I would use the word colleagues. I mean, they all compete in college football.
I walk in and see Hershey and a Meyer, and I just start throwing down and just beating the shit out of them.
Yeah, it's I know that it's going to get taken care of the right way. There's a lot of eyes, and the police are involved as well as the commissioners, and I think the NCAA is getting involved a little bit too. So it's going to be handled correctly, I think. But it's just disappointing, you know. At the end of the day, this is just a stupid game. I mean, it's a great game, but it's a stupid game that people get all amped up about. And there needs to be more respect from both sides for the opposition. I think that's something that's gone away in the last few years.
I think, Kory, do we still have you?
I don't know. He looks really
Kory's
happy and is frozen.
Kory's, if you're watching on YouTube, Kory's face is frozen in a smile.
He looks so happy.
He's gone. Oh, there he goes. He's gone. So hopefully he comes back in a second. He must be having some internet issues. What I was going to add, I was hoping Kory would be on here, but hopefully he'll come back shortly. The only thing that I would add is I think it's really frustrating. And this is something that I saw for anyone listening or watching. If you have a chance, I would highly recommend watching Chris Castellani's video. I really love a lot of the commentary that Chris Castellani does regarding sports in general, and he always gives the most level-headed, unbiased, nuanced. He uses the word nuanced in the video because he likes nuance. He likes talking about how it shouldn't be extremes. Everything shouldn't be spoken about in a vacuum or in extremes. And he kind of goes through the whole situation very delicately as an unbiased fan, even as a Michigan fan. And I like that he mentioned how shitty it is that there's a lot of people on the internet who are using this as a reason to condemn an entire university, an entire team and program, and an entire coaching staff, which is pretty crappy because obviously what those 8 guys did could even end up being more. I don't know. As the investigation continues, it's at least 8 guys, but if it ends up being around a dozen, there's over 100 guys on a college football team. So is this an indictment of every guy on that team? Is someone like Bryce Behringer, who looks like a giant teddy bear punting the ball with his goggles, like that guy's a thug now? Like everyone on that team is just a scumbag. I resent that sentiment. I've seen a lot of that. That's why I've kind of stayed off of Twitter. And I've tried to avoid some of the discussion revolving this because I think it's really toxic and disgusting what I've seen some people saying about Coach Tucker, and as well as the program at Michigan State. I think it's pretty crappy. It reminds me of when D'Antonio first got hired. There was a situation that a lot of people probably remember where Michigan State football players were kicked off the team, kicked out of the university for getting into a fight, jumping Michigan State hockey players, and I think robbing them. I think some of them ended up going to prison or jail for the incident, and it was a very ugly moment in D'Antonio early in his career, and they got by it. That was very early on, and they had a lot of success after that. So Tucker and and Holler and the university, obviously they'll take care of it. They'll make sure that the guys who did this are punished appropriately, and I think it's something that they'll move on from. But as Chris Castellani talked about in his video, it's definitely a low point in Tucker's tenure at Michigan State. Pretty ugly moment. As a Michigan State fan, I was very embarrassed and upset to see members of the team conducting themselves that way. It sucks, but it's only the situation is also amplified in the Michigan State community because of their record this year too, and the heat is definitely on Mel Tucker now. But I will say, to your point, Vince, there was a lot of good things I saw in that video too. Xavier Henderson was the one that really stuck out to me. He really was trying to break it up and get. I did see some guys trying to grab them. Yeah, I did see that.
Some big dude put somebody in a headlock and literally carried him away from the situation.
Yeah, which is good to see. It's like you said, it's not everybody. I mean, whenever you get 100 guys in a room, chances are.
I mean, it's less than 10% of the team. If most Division I teams have around 100 or more guys, usually more than 100.
Every football team has a set of 10 guys that they know. Yeah, you can't trust those guys. I mean, everybody knows who those people are. So
some of these guys are young too. I looked at him and I'm not going to remember, but the one who's a safety is like a freshman.
Well, I mean, he's on the travel squad, so he's got to be in like the 2 deep at least.
The one guy's a starter. Like he started every game this year as a freshman.
Well, and Jacoby Windman is a big time player, so that's a huge loss for their defense. Jacoby Windman that's really shitty because now that's him making a really awful decision really screws them for their chance. And, they needed everyone to have a chance at upsetting Penn State or Illinois, and now. I'll be surprised. I'd be shocked.
Yeah. I mean, moving on for next year, it's going to make this game really interesting. Hopefully, this game's at noon in East Lansing.
Yeah. We'll see. I guess.
Fired up. So.
Well, all right. I think are we going to wrap things up with a little? Do we have a little Lions news we wanted to chat about?
Yeah. So the Lions lost to Miami, 31-27. Interesting game if you watched it. It was one of those games where the Lions were really in control for the majority of the game, and we just could not stop Tyreek Hill, which 90% of the NFL can't, or Jalen Waddle, which I do thoroughly enjoy Jalen Waddle's waddle dance when he scores a touchdown. Big fan of that. But what came out of this game is we fired Audrey Pleasant, our secondaries coach, and then breaking news today, we traded TJ Hawkinson, who Brett has been low on since he's been in Detroit. So if Brett wants to give some feedback on why this is good, I would love to hear it.
I think it's a great move for the Lions, number one, because I don't think that TJ Hawkinson is living up to his number 10 overall pick. His contract expires next year. Lions are kind of in a salary crunch situation where they needed to dump some cash. I think the Lions owed him like $3 or $4 million next year on his 4th year in the NFL. And I think what the Lions are really trying to avoid was getting into a situation like they had a couple years back, and I think it was 2018 with Eric Ebron, where they'd ended up not re-signing him and they didn't get anything for him. And they were talking about trading him at the deadline too, and they didn't do it. So I think in this situation, they were able to flip him and get a 2nd and 3rd round pick. They did have to dump a couple later round picks. What was it, Kory? Like a 4th and a 6th or something?
Yeah. 1 in 23, 1 in 24.
Yeah, so I think in that sense it was a good move. And do I think TJ Hawkinson's a terrible football player? No. But I think in the situation the Lions are in, he's just they need to get rid of assets where they can, especially assets that might not fit in their long-term plan. And I think that he is going to be a lot more expensive than his production on the field is going to be. And I don't think it's going to end up like this, but a lot of people didn't like when the Lions got rid of Kenny Golladay, and look what he's doing with the Giants. Now, I don't think that Hawkinson's going to have a career like that, but I don't think he's a top 10 tight end in the league right now. And the way that he's getting paid, he probably should be. So I don't think it's a bad move. I know Kory has a separate view on this too.
I mean, I do personally think he's a top 10 tight end in the NFL. Now that I've had some time to kind of think about it, and I think Brock Wright is putting up similar information, similar stats, not similar stats, but I think Brock Wright can be a good replacement for TJ Hawkinson. He's a little bit better of a blocking tight end than TJ was. I think TJ, though was a good blocker, he wasn't great, and he was a decent receiving tight end, but he was like, I don't know, he's following in the lines of the Kittles and the Kelseys and those guys like we talked about earlier, Brett. So I think for what they got for him, looking at the 2023 NFL draft, we've got 2 first-round picks. We have our picks and the Rams pick. We have 2 second-round picks now, our pick and the Vikings pick, a 3rd, a 5th, and 2 6th-round picks. So I think we're really locked and loaded for next year's draft, which is great to see. I think we follow the same trend as we followed this last year, and who knows, maybe we wheel and deal some of those 2024 picks to even get a higher pick in 23. Right now it's looking like we're going to go quarterback in 23. I mean,
Bryce Young.
We got to build a defense, though, man. Our defense sucks. They're so bad.
Yeah, I will say in that draft where the Lions picked TJ Hawkinson, Ed Oliver was this pick right after him. Rashawn Gary was a couple picks later. I think Devin White was also like 15 picks later. I think he went like 25th to the Bucks or something. So it's just a bummer. I mean, you can do that in every draft. But
And I read an interesting article today is you had a coaching staff that didn't draft TJ Hawkinson. It was the regime before. So you're looking at a staff that didn't bring this guy in, who was a 10th overall pick, who's gonna expect to be paid. He's not really your guy, so you're not really truly invested in him. You move on, you cut your ties. Could you?
He's not part of the long-term plan.
Is he replaceable? Yeah, he's replaceable. So that's all I got on the Lions. We fucking suck. There's my swear word for the episode.
And with that, I believe it is time for Brett's recommendation of the week.
All right. So I've had a couple of different recommendations. I've had breweries. I've had drinks. I've had
pants.
I was going to say that last. Vince jumping to the gun. Costco pants was probably the
funniest recommendation.
So this week I'm going with a snack. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. It's pumpkin spice yogurt pretzels. You can buy these at Costco. The motto is real good, feel good, and that's exactly how they make you feel when you're done. They make you feel really good, and they make you feel really good too.
Like change your underwear good?
No, they don't. They don't give you bowel problems. I think they might make you more regular. But no, they are super good, and you got to be careful if you sit down with the bag. It's a big bag. It comes in a 1 pound 10 ounce bag, so almost a 2 pound bag. That's a lot of pretzels.
Did you say they were from Costco?
Yeah, they're from Costco. Pumpkin spice, tis the season.
Aldi makes them too, and they're very good.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Brett with his Costco recommendations coming again. Enjoy those if you can.
We need to get a sponsorship from Costco, so it could just be the Costco recommendation of the week.
Yeah, honestly, I could do that every single week.
Speaking of a sponsor, before this episode wraps up, we are very excited to announce that it looks like we will be having. We're still working out the details, but. A sponsor, quote unquote, partnership, sponsorship, with our first sponsor. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's something that we're kind of working out a few details before we share it out. It'll probably be in next week's episode, I think is the plan right now, once we iron out a few more details. So we're very excited to share that as well. All right. Thank you for listening and watching this week. If you like what you hear or what you see, check out our Twitter page at GLSF Ball. Follow us on Instagram at Great Lakes State Football. If you like the video versions of the podcast on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to Great Lakes State Football. Throw those videos a like and leave us a comment if you have something thoughtful to say. And if you like the audio version, make sure you add Great Lakes State Football on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to your library. You can give us a 5-star review on those stores, and you can give us a comment there as well. I'm Vince, Great Lakes State Football, episode 35 with Brett and Kory. Go Chargers.
Alma Scott Nation, stand up, boy. T3 Cho City.
Go Comets.
Go Blue. Go Lions.
The Lions.
Fire up Chips. The Lakers.